Quick note before we get started, I'm still recovering from being sick, so if my voice sounds a little off, that's why. Now, you're probably here because this is a Caliban's hand build. But more important, you're looking for a pure solo setup, not another Prismatic one. This build has tons of ignition, restoration from multiple sources, constant radiant uptime, improved weapon performance, and quite a bit of flexibility depending on what content you're running. I'll mainly focus on what I personally run and explain why, but I'll also point out a few other options that work during testing. Let's jump into it. For exotic armor, obviously Caliban's hand. I ended up on this exotic for two reasons. First, it looks super cool, let's be honest. But also because I initially wanted to build around the spirit of Caliban's hand with Prismatic, and I just wasn't feeling it. The bouncy melees were fun, but it felt inconsistent, and honestly, almost all my builds lately have been Prismatic. So I wanted something different, and solo felt overdue. Caliban's hand boosts the proximity knife, a melee I honestly never used before this, now applies 60 stacks of Scourge, and if it gets a kill, it causes an ignition. If it sticks to surface but doesn't detonate, you get a massive 500% base melee regeneration rate for as long as the knife stays active. Let's get into the abilities. The super is pretty much up to you. I personally run Blade Barrage. It's fast, reliable, does great act clear or boss damage, and works well in close to mid-range fights. If you like swapping mid-combat, you can also use Golden Gun Marksman with Celestial Nighthawk for boss damage or Deadshot. One of the potential fragments later in the build even leans into Golden Gun Deadshot. For the class ability, Gambler's Dodge. We're melee focused, so having a dodge that gives your knife back is just too good to pass up. Even if your aspect doesn't trigger, Gambler's Dodge has your back. As for the melee, of course, proximity knife, otherwise Caliban's hand would be useless. It sticks to surface for up to 14 seconds and explodes if an enemy walks near it. For the grenade, it really depends on the content. For harder content like Solo Lost Sector, as shown in the background, I run Healing Grenade. It gives instant ×1 cure and ×1 restoration, which is 60 HP on impact and 35 HP per second for 7.5 seconds. In chill content like Strikes, I switch to Fusion Grenade. It applies 40 stacks of Scourge and has a relatively low cooldown. Here's some grenades I wouldn't suggest using. The Solar Grenade just takes too long to recharge, and in this build I already have a good grenade rotation without needing to wait that long. Fireball Grenade only applies 20 stacks of Scourge, and even though its cooldown is a little lower than Fusion, the value isn't there. Let's get into the aspects. Knock him down. Boost your super. Blade Barrage throws 3 extra knives per fan. Most importantly though, kills with powered melee while radiant refund the melee. Then for the second, we're gonna go on your mark. Weapon focused. Up to 3 stacks of on your mark gives plus 45 reload speed and plus 45 handling for 12 seconds. Dodging gives you all 3 stacks instantly, and you can also build them up with precision kills from weapons or melees, for example. For the fragments. Here's the combo I like the most for a balance of uptime, survivability and synergy. Ember of Torches. Power melee gives radiant to you and allies in an 8 meter radius. Ember of Singeing. Scorching enemies grants 400% increased base class ability regeneration for 3 seconds. This one stays active really consistently throughout the build, especially with how easily we are applying Scorch both with melee and other sources. Then for the third one, Ember of Searing. Killing scorched targets gives melee energy and spawns Fire Sprite. Red bars gives 8%, orange gives 15%, yellows give 17.5 to 25%. Mostly we're using this for Fire Sprites since melee energy often comes from the aspect anyway. Then Ember of Ashes increases applied Scorch stacks by 50%. Sadly that doesn't boost the 60 stacks from Caliban's, but it does enhance our weapon Scorch. For the last one, Ember of Mercy. Picking up a Fire Sprite gives restoration for 2 seconds. If already active, it adds 2 seconds to the time. Now, here are some additional fragments that you might want to look at. While the main 5 fragments are what I personally settled on, I tested a bunch of other setups, and depending on what content you're bringing this into, they might work better for you. Ember of Combustion. If you're using Golden Gun Deadshot and want more super synergy, this adds ignition on super kills, great in low to mid tier content for chaining ignitions and refunding ammo. Then Ember of Solace. Increases the duration of Radiant and Restoration. I didn't find much utility in harder content together with auto fragments. That's because it utilizes one spot and it needs auto fragments of it to really shine. But in strikes or casual knife fight, it works really well. Ember of Benevolence grants 400% base ability regen when you apply Cure, Restoration or Radiant to allies. If you're in a fire team and want to lean into support while keeping uptime high, this is worth considering. Ember of Empyrean extends Radiant and Restoration on solo kills. Not super consistent in harder content, but in anything more relaxed like playlist activities, it helps your uptime noticeably. Ember of Blistering. Ignition kills return grenade energy. Scaling goes from 8% on red bars up to 25% for yellow bars. In content where ignitions are popping off frequently, this is a solid grenade loop enhancer. Bottom line, if you're taking this into harder content, I'd stick to the main setup I ran. But for anything like normal strikes, seasonal activities, or basic nightfalls, there's a ton of flexibility depending on what you want more of. Survivability, damage output, or pure ability spam. Let's jump to the weapons. In the kinetic slot, it's really your call. Personally, I wasn't even using my kinetic weapon that much in this build, because most of the time I was relying on the energy slot to keep the loop going. But if I do need something reliable for champion coverage or utility, Tinashe's Mastery with Chill Clip is my go-to. For the energy slot, this weapon honestly surprised me. I used to think it was kind of useless until I tried it in this build. Skyburner's Oath applies Scorch just by firing from the hip, which plays directly into Ember of Singeing for faster ability regen. But what it really makes it shine here is that killing scorched enemies triggers Ember of Searing, giving you melee energy and spawning fire sprites, which feed right back into your grenade economy and into the restoration. On top of that, Ember of Ashes increases the amount of Scorch applied, making ignitions easy to trigger. Now, on Destiny Data Compendium, it's marked as it shouldn't increase the Scorch applied, but while doing the tests, it actually does. You get range, reliable Scorch stacking, consistent fragment activation. One little side note, the Lost Sector in the background is with Cabal, and Skyburner's Oath does 18% more damage to Cabal. For the heavy, anything you like honestly. I used Apex Predator with Reconstruction and Bait and Switch. Rockets always ready, no reload stress. Let's get into the armor. Since we are working mostly with increased base cooldown rather than get a fixed percentage back, get mobility as high as possible. A minimum would be 80. Then focus on resilience and discipline, and lastly on recovery. My current stats are 80, 100, 60 and 100 without considering the last two. For the armor mods. On the helmet, 3 times Solar Siphon, mainly boosts ability uptime and super generation. On the arm, 1 Focusing Strike, which is 12% class ability energy on powered melee hit, 1 Impact Induction, which is 12% grenade energy on powered melee hit, and 1 Grenade Kickstart. This is a 38.4% grenade energy with 1 mod and 4 armor charges when utilizing your grenade. You could also run 2 Impact Induction instead if you want more grenade regen. On the chest, 1 Charge Stop, which increases the max armor charges, and then any resistance mods. On the legs, 1 Elemental Charge. Picking up 2 Fire Sprites gives you 1 armor charge. Then 2 innovations, each orb gives 13% grenade energy. If you want survivability instead of ability spam, swap 1 innovation for recuperation, which is a 70 HP per orb. Or Absolution, which gives 5% energy to grenade, melee and class ability on orb pickup. On the class item, 1 Powerful Attraction, which collects nearby orbs when dodging, and 2 Bombers, which is 17% grenade energy on class ability use. Swap 1 Bomber for Reaper if you want more orbs instead. This one took the longest to test out. I was running in and out of Lost Sectors until late at night trying to min-max the entire setup, but it was worth it. And Skyburner's Oath completely surprised me here. Hope this breakdown helped and maybe even convinced you to give Caliban's hand a shot. Thanks for watching and have a great day, night, evening, morning or afternoon, whatever your time zone is. Hopefully catch you next time.